In the quaint religious community of Bethora, peace and piety had long been the prevailing winds. It was a tight-knit group, united by faith and sustained by ritual, often gathering in the old stone chapel at the heart of their settlement. Yet, even in such idyllic settings, shadows can reach. The change was first sensed by the clergy, a disquiet that settled like soot from an unseen fire. Whispers snaked through the congregation, murmuring of dreams plagued by demonic visions and verses sung in a chilling cadence. The community's leader, Reverend Wycliffe, felt the tendrils of unease creep into his own soul. Confounded, he consulted ancient texts, seeking wisdom from holy scriptures, but the words swirled into incomprehensible riddles. A sudden chill struck the village, unnatural and biting. Animals recoiled in their stables, and even the most devout found themselves crossing the threshold of the chapel with hesitancy. The once sacred space now felt tainted, as if profaned by some malevolent presence. As nights grew darker, so did the hearts of Bethora's residents. Dreams became nightmares, and prayers morphed into curses. Something had shifted, and everyone could feel it. A heavy atmosphere of impending doom enveloped the community like a shroud, as thick as the mist that rolled in from the surrounding woods. The disquiet in Bethora manifested in startling ways. The chapel's stained glass windows, once vibrant with heavenly depictions, now seemed to distort the figures into grotesque shapes. Cherubs transformed into twisted imps, their innocent faces now contorted in malevolent grins. Children, the most vulnerable of all, began to speak in tongues, uttering phrases far beyond their years and comprehension. Parents, terrified and helpless, clung to their rosaries and prayer books, but found no solace in them. Reverend Wycliffe, plagued by self-doubt and spiritual turmoil, retreated into his study. Poring over religious treatises and arcane doctrines, he stumbled upon references to exorcisms and rites of purification. With every page he turned, a horrifying realization dawned. He was confronting a demonic presence. Elders of the community, long-standing pillars of faith, convened for an emergency council. The room was thick with tension, everyone avoiding direct eye contact as if the mere act could invite malevolence. One by one they recounted their own experiences, each tale more disturbing than the last. Finally, they arrived at a dreadful consensus. A ritual of exorcism was necessary, and it was to take place immediately. A collective sense of foreboding engulfed them, as they realized that the ritual could either liberate their community or damn it forever. The chapel was prepared for the ritual with an air of frantic urgency. Candles flickered erratically, casting quivering shadows on the stone walls. Altar cloths, once white as snow, appeared tinged with an unsettling hue of crimson, as if already stained by an outcome yet to unfold. Reverend Wycliffe donned the ceremonial vestments, heavy with the weight of both fabric and responsibility. He stood before the altar, trembling hands clutching a vial of holy water and a crucifix of ancient make. His eyes met those of his congregation, faces etched with fear, hope, and desperation. With the first utterance of the ritual chant, a cacophonous uproar filled the chapel. The walls seemed to pulsate, and the floor beneath their feet quaked as if rebelling against the holy rites. Every candle snuffed out simultaneously, plunging the room into pitch darkness. In that abyssal void, a voice echoed, bone-chilling and malevolent. It was a distorted, otherworldly tongue, yet every soul understood its meaning: defiance. A guttural laugh reverberated, chilling them to their very core, a mocking rejection of their faith and efforts. Reverend Wycliffe, summoning a courage born of desperation, shouted the final incantation. A blinding light engulfed the chapel, a luminous battle between darkness and light. And then, as suddenly as it began, everything ceased. Silence reigned, oppressive and final. The silence that descended upon the chapel was finally broken by a collective exhale, a mixture of relief and confusion. Reverend Wycliffe collapsed into a pew, his body trembling, his spirit shattered. The walls, windows, and artifacts around them seemed unchanged, yet there was an unspoken agreement that something had irrevocably shifted. People began to leave the chapel, eyes averted, as if the very act of acknowledging each other would confirm the incomprehensible events that transpired. Each soul carried its own turmoil into the night, as homes were returned to but not the comfort they once provided. Yet, as days passed, peculiar changes took root. Flowers, long dead and wilted, sprung back to life. A child, mute since birth, spoke her first words. The elders who led the council found new vigor, as if years had been peeled away. These miracles, however small, began to restore faith within the community. Reverend Wycliffe found solace in these signs, drawing from them the strength to rebuild his shaken faith. His sermons became fervent calls to unity and resilience. Though the darkness had touched them all, it also served as a crucible, tempering their spirits, making them stronger in broken places. Bethora found its new normal, not by forgetting the past, but by embracing it. The scars were visible, but they had become part of the communal tapestry, a permanent testament to their resilience and reborn faith. Years had passed since the fateful ritual, yet the events of that night remained etched in the collective memory of Bethora. Each anniversary was marked by a special mass, where Reverend Wycliffe would speak not only of faith, but of the inherent duality in all things, light and darkness, good and evil. The chapel, once a focal point of spiritual torment, had become a sanctuary once more. Its stained glass windows, restored by local artisans, gleamed brilliantly in the sunlight. But if one looked closely, they might notice subtle changes in the depictions, as if the figures had been granted new expressions, serene, but with a hint of melancholy. Children born after that night grew up hearing whispers and tales, but to them, it was the stuff of legend, a mythic part of their heritage. They played among the gravestones, blissfully ignorant of the price paid for their peaceful lives. As for Reverend Wycliffe, he continued his duties with a sense of purpose, renewed but forever altered. There was a depth to his eyes, a gravitas in his demeanor that told of battles fought in realms beyond understanding. He knew better than anyone that darkness was never truly vanquished, merely kept at bay. And so Bethora lived on, a community forever marked but not defeated. It had faced the abyss, wrestled with its own demons, and emerged with a newfound appreciation for the fragile balance that makes life both a perilous journey and a miraculous gift.